Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this lovely little Smarter Living happy hour. I'm Tim Herrera. I've been with Smarter Living since the very beginning, way back in 2016, and I am joined tonight by two of my favorite Smarter Living contributors and an award-winning cocktail expert. We want tonight to be just super light, super casual to help everybody unwind after what, forever, all of us has been a very stressful week. And I'm just so thrilled that everybody could join us tonight. Tonight's event is part of a slate of virtual events that the New York Times is producing to help readers understand and navigate the world in which we currently find ourselves. So with a drink in hand tonight, we just kind of want to chat a little bit about the joys that we can find in quarantine, where we can find them, and a little bit about maintaining something of a semblance of a social life. If you plan on making a cocktail with us, just hold on one quick second. But if not, and you want to take a quick second to grab a beverage, have at it. And last housekeeping thing, if you do have any questions tonight about staying social during quarantine or having a social life or just kind of finding your way through, we really want you to ask them. You should see down below somewhere here, there's a little Q&A button. Pop your questions in there. We'll be trying to get to them throughout. Feel free to just, tell us, ask whatever you'd like. And just FYI, this is being recorded. Just to say, as we all know, and have probably experienced, Zooms can be very weird and very awkward. So bear with us as we assuredly awkwardly talk over each other and have the inevitable technical difficulties. But again, we're just so happy that all of you could join us tonight, and we're ready to just have a lot of fun. Enough for me. I just want to quickly introduce the lovely panelists who have joined us tonight. First up, we have Anna Goldfarb, who has probably written more stories for Smarter Living than anyone else. Anna writes about careers, pop psychology, relationships, and aside from the Times, her work has appeared in Vice and the Washington Post, and she is also the author of the humor memoir, Clearly I Didn't Think This Through, and she lives in Philadelphia. Quick note about Anna, she's also the person who encouraged me to finally buy a Nintendo Switch. So for that, I am deeply thankful to you, Anna. Next, we have Micaela Marini Higgs joining us from Spain. Micaela is a copywriter, a freelance journalist, and a regular contributor to, of course, Smarter Living. She writes on things like culture, consumerism, and romance novels have been published in outlets, and she's been published in outlets like BBC, Women's Wear Daily, and Vox. She's an art expert, fun fact about her, and her very first story for Smarter Living was about how to appreciate art if you don't really get art. And I'm absolutely one of those people, and I thought that was just such a wonderful, beautiful story. And finally is our cocktail expert, and if we're being honest, kind of a celebrity in the world of food and drink, Joaquín Simó. Joaquín is a partner at the East Village cocktail bar Pouring Ribbons here in New York City, and he's a partner in Alchemy Consulting. He's a 20-year veteran of the bar business, and he was recognized as the American Cocktail Bartender of the Year in 2012 at the 2012 Spirit Awards at the Tales of the Cocktail. So enough out of me. We thought we'd kick off the night, so like I said, by having Joaquín teach us all how to make a couple of really simple, really malleable, really customizable cocktails. So if you don't have all the ingredients, don't sweat. He's going to walk us through some substitutions, and you can swap in all kinds of things, and he'll tell us what those things are. First up, I believe we're going to make a South Side, and then after that, we will show you how to make a bee's knees. Joaquín, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you to all of the team at Smarter Living. I'm a huge fan, so this is just wonderful for me to be able to do something with you guys. I know that it doesn't always feel like we have a lot of happy hours while we're in quarantine, so anytime that we have an opportunity to have a happy hour, I think we should definitely take advantage of it. So we're just going to go through a couple of really simple sours. Most classic cocktails only have 3 ingredients, so this is just like a little bit of stuff that's easy to do at home. None of this is complicated. So the first thing we're going to start off with is the South Side, and for that you need a little bit of simple syrup. I just make this at home. It is equal parts by weight or by volume, white sugar and water. Combine them into something else. You can stir it, you can blend it, you can whatever. It'll keep for about a month in the fridge. If you need it to last longer, throw a little bit of vodka into it. It'll keep for about 4 or 5 months in the fridge. The only thing I wouldn't recommend is don't fill whatever it is you're building it in halfway with sugar and then the rest with water, or do the reverse, because the proportions just won't work. But if you just either weigh it or measure it in equal parts, you'll get it. It's a really just, I mean, obviously it's a simple syrup. So we're going to start off with 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup. And that goes right into our mixing tin. And the next thing that's going to need to happen is we're going to need fresh lime juice. And it may be tempting to buy the plastic bottle that looks like a giant lime, or to buy the jug of pasteurized lime juice, or heaven forbid the Rose's lime juice. Don't do those things. Go to the produce section. These were 5 for $1. Very, very reasonable. Lime and lemon juice only last as long. Pretty much it's only the day of. So when you're cutting into your limes, you don't want to cut pole to pole. You want to cut around the equator. That is going to give you a really easy way to get the lime juice out, right? You have your fancy, incredibly complicated piece of juicing equipment right here, a pretty standard elbow juicer. And it may look like this thing is going to fit down very neatly in the shape here. It looks that way, but that's industrial design lying to you. You want to turn it upside down so that the cut side of the fruit is facing where the holes are. And now that I say that out loud, it seems like industrial design makes more sense. So we're just going to take this and we're going to juice it right into that same jigger. I tend to add the sticky and cheap ingredient first, and then I wash out the jigger with that juice afterwards, right? So that goes right in there. And we're going to take about 6 to 8 sprigs of mint leaves. And these I usually pull from like the bottom of those. Those are usually like the less pretty leaves. So I'd rather use those if I'm just going to be shaking them with ice. Now, if you have a muddler at home or a wooden spoon or something, you can go ahead and muddle this if you really want. I'm not even going to bother to muddle it. The ice is going to break up the mint. And if you take a good look at your mint, you're going to see all these capillaries in there, and that's going to be super, super aromatic and just a little bruising of it. You don't have to overwork the mint. Otherwise, it's going to get really grassy and bitter and vegetal. Next, we're adding a couple ounces of gin. Gin is really lovely in this. It's the classic ingredient that goes into it. And then less classic, but I like just a single dash of orange bitters in there. I like the orange as opposed to an aromatic bitter because it overwhelms it a lot less. So we've got all of that.
Now, Joaquín, I'm making along with you at home. Let me ask you a quick question. If someone doesn't have gin on hand, do you have a recommended substitution?
Any white spirit is going to work. And the same thing with mint. If you don't have mint, that's okay. So you could do this with vodka. You could do this with aquavit. You could do it with tequila, with mezcal, with white rum. And then if you don't have mint, you can do it with basil, with rosemary, with tarragon, with thyme. The only thing I would say is for stuff like thyme or rosemary, they're hardier, stemmier herbs. So those you might actually have to muddle a little bit. But the more delicate herbs don't really take much. So we've got everything in the tin. Now we're going to take the top of it, and that always goes in at a slight angle. And then you just hit that. Doesn't actually take much effort, right? Here we've got a perfect seal. That's not going anywhere. And now to shake. So now we're just going to shake this. And because this is going to go into a cocktail glass, there's no in the cocktail glass. So it's only ever going to be as cold as we make it in here and as diluted as we do it in here. So we're going to have to shake this for a little bit. There's no right or wrong way to shake. Just whatever feels comfortable for you. You're going to want to do it with both hands because that'll give you a better idea for how cold it's getting. And you want it to be almost uncomfortable to hold. And then also listen, right? The ice will tell you when it stops going tum, 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 and it goes into that, it's telling you it's time to go in the glass. So right now, I'm just going to take the standard Hawthorne strainer. This was all I had. I would just push down on the strainer. It's called dropping the gate, and that'll keep a lot of the ice chips and the mint flecks from getting in. If you happen to have a tea strainer, go ahead and use that. Totally not necessary, but it's a nice to have it. So we got that in there. And lastly, we take a little sprig of mint. We just spank it on the back of our hand, That's just going to wake it up. It's going to make it nice and aromatic. And then that goes right in here. And we have a Southside cocktail.
Wonderful. Beautiful little drink there.
So happy.
Excellent. So we have one more. What's our next cocktail? What do you got for us?
So making syrup is just too much work, right? It's the sugar and the water. It's like, I don't want to dissolve stuff. Just go to the farmer's market, get some honey. Could be clover, could be wildflower, acacia, whatever they have. And I do 2 parts honey to 1 part water, and I just stir that to combine them. So I'm going to take 3/4 of that. I'm going to add it in there. Again, this time we're going with a lemon, not a lime. So I'm going to take half of a lemon, put it in the juicer, give it a little squeeze. Oh, wow. That was a very stingy lemon. I'm going to need another little bit of it in there. I'm just going to get it to there, equal parts. And this is not a strict recipe. If you like it a little more tart, add a little more lemon juice. If you like it a little sweeter, add a little more honey. And the drink is classically made with gin, so we're going to do it with gin. But it's also another one that kind of easily benefits from substituting. And indeed, there's a lot of classic versions of it. So if you were to take the 2 ounces of gin that we just added to the 3/4 sweetener and the 3/4 citrus, it's a bee's knees. If we were to substitute rum into that, then it would be a honeysuckle. If we were to do it with bourbon, it would be a gold rush. And if we were to do it with apple brandy, which I highly recommend, that's a Jim Kern's drink called the Golden Delicious. It's also really good with like aged tequilas. So this one as well goes into the mixing tin. I've always liked this one in a cocktail glass as well. So again, we're just going to give it a nice long shake. All right.
Joaquin, I have to say your shaking technique is impeccable. You look like a real pro.
I've literally tens of thousands of hours of practice, so I can improve. My favorite part about drinks that have stuff like honey or pineapple juice that makes them so appealing is that they froth up in such a gorgeous way when you shake them up. So they immediately look super appealing. And depending on the intensity of your honey, you're going to get a really different flavor out of this, right? I might steer clear of buckwheat honey, but pretty much any floral honey is just going to sting.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have my own little drink here. Cheers to anybody else who's drinking along with us. Joaquin, thank you again so much. This has been wonderful. Appreciate it. All right. So now that everybody has a drink in hand, I want to go over and talk a little bit with Anna. Now, Anna has written a ton of guides for Smarter Living and for the Times about surviving quarantine and even having a little fun. And she also wrote a story about how to have a successful happy hour. So first, Anna, how are we doing so far? Are we doing all right?
Oh, I'm loving life. This is fabulous.
Good. So glad to hear it.
This is great.
Now, listen, on the schedule, we were going to talk a little bit about happy hours, but we just got a wonderful question from a viewer that I would love to throw at you and throw at the group. So here we go. I am trying to date someone I met right as all of this started. So we do lots of video dates while eating dinner together, but dinner can get old after a while, both in real life and virtually. Any ideas for things we can do together while being social distant? Now, one thing I'll throw out there that is fun for couples of any type, Animal Crossing, right? Go visit each other's island, get some flowers together. I don't know, that sounds like a great date to me. But Anna, let's start at if you are having a virtual happy hour. What are some things that, whether it's on a date or whether it's just a couple friends together, like what are some things that can kind of set us up so it's not just like a weird, like awkward hour, whatever, was just staring at each other?
Well, I think everyone was in a rush to schedule a ton of happy hours when this first started, but people quickly became very burnt out. They're like, why is this so taxing just to focus and pay attention and talk to my friends? So it's important to have a start time and an end time. so people can plan the rest of their night and move on to other things. You have to cook dinner, you have other people in your household. So have an end time. It helps make it not like awkward to log off and just sort of trail off. Also, it helps to come up with things ahead of time to get the ball rolling, because you don't really know where everyone's at, and it's hard to think of things to talk about when you've been home all day. So I would definitely recommend asking, what have you been watching? What have you been reading? What have you been baking? Like, just try to get the ball rolling. And also consider tightening the guest list. It's a little unwieldy if there's a ton of people, because only one person can talk at once during these happy hours, which is unnatural. You're used to breaking off in small groups, you know, taking a break, going outside. Like, you can't do that in a virtual setting. So keep it small so everyone can really listen to each other and connect. Really, that's the point, to connect, right? And try to do a chat for colleagues, one for friends, one for family. Like, don't feel the need to get everyone all together at once, because it can be weird if people don't know each other. Also, make sure, if you do a theme, to make sure everyone's on the same page with it. Give them time to source the ingredients.
Everyone has their own thing. We want to avoid that, so you're saying.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I want to do a theme where everyone dresses in a ball gown. Like, okay, I don't have a ball gown. Like, it's a little unwieldy.
You know what? I went to a Zoom birthday party a couple of weeks ago, and the theme was literally the black tie, and I thought it was kind of like a joke, but like, I would say at least half the people wore like a suit or an actual gown. It was very impressive. I felt very underdressed.
Tim was
Very
right.
fancy friends.
Like, I shop at Old Navy, so I don't have anything I could wear to a ball gown theme thing. Yeah. Like, so that would be challenging for me. Like, a pizza party could be cool. Wine and cheese could be cool. Like, people you could just sort of get it together with just a little bit of notice. I guess practically it helps if you're somewhere that's quiet in your house. I went to a bunch of happy hours to come up with a piece, to do some research. And some people had dogs barking, kids crying, which happens, but it also interrupted everything. Like, everything went to a standstill. So if you do have that noisy house, use the mute button and make sure that you're not like unintentionally getting the little yellow grid to your picture when you're not intending to have the yellow grid on your picture. Last tip, embrace the chat feature. That's been my favorite random thing about this whole virtual happy hour, is the conversations you have with the other people in the group. It's really fun. It's random. It's the best part.
That's great. I love it. I love it. Now, I do want to talk about having a birthday party during core, because I was one of those people. But before we get to that, Joaquin, I want to throw a viewer question at you real quick. The question is, can you make your own bitters, or is there something that we can use as a replacement?
You can make your own bitters. You absolutely can. A bitters is just a multi-part tincture. So you can flavor it with whatever you have. You can use spices, herbs, botanicals, all of those things. And then the bitter part of it usually comes at the end when you're adding like a bitter root or a bitter bark. The only thing I would say is that, especially now when sourcing stuff is really, really difficult, finding a bottle of Angostura bitters is probably going to be so much more time and energy efficient that I might do that, and then maybe pick up Brad Thomas Parsons' book on bitters. And he has a lot of great recipes in that that kind of walk you through how to make it. Because if there's one thing all this free time is good for, it's learning how to make bitters, or clarifying milk punches, or doing all those weird cocktail things that you thought, well, I'm never going to have time for that. This is a good time for that. But in the meanwhile, buy a bottle of Angostura.
Great, great, great. Love it. Now, Anna, back to social life during quarantine. So my birthday was comically terrible this year. My birthday first was during quarantine, but I found out I tested positive for COVID-19 on my birthday. Oh, wonderful. And in a weird way, that's like almost one of my most memorable birthdays. Like, how am I ever going to top that?
How are you going to forget that?
It's unforgettable. Really the greatest one I could have asked for. But so Anna, for somebody who maybe doesn't want a truly awful birthday, as I had, what do you think are some ways that people can kind of do the best they can with what they've got?
Well, I also celebrated a birthday in quarantine at the end of March. And I thought it was going to be like a bust. I really thought there's nothing to look forward to. Everything's closed. This is a drag. But it ended up being a really fabulous day. And I think my best advice would be to think about now what would make the day special. As much time as time is on your side with this, because you need to plan ahead. If you need things shipped, if you need people to get gifts for you, it's not like before where you could just pop into Sephora and pick something up for your friend. Like, you need to plan ahead. So I thought about what would make the day special for me. And I just got together with my family and we all made a cake and blew out the candles on a Zoom chat like this. So just like we talked about with the happy hour, doing simple themes your whole family could do really elevates the fun. Like, it made it more fun to have everyone make a cake. Do a pizza party, cupcakes and champagne, wine and cheese, like whatever's low lift, easy to put together, everyone can do it. Also be upfront about gifts. I think it was a little confusing, like what people wanted to do to make it special. I just said gift cards. I'm like, just send me a gift card. We'll figure it out. Gift cards are great. And ask for help. If you're really bummed, if you feel a little overwhelmed with everything, see a therapist. A lot of therapists are doing virtual visits. Telehealth is huge. It's everywhere. So get some help if you're really feeling pretty bummed.
Excellent. Love it. Well, I'm sorry that you had to have a birthday during core, but again, we're doing the best we can with what we've got. Now, listen, Joaquin, I got to throw a really, really important question your way. This is coming from a lot of viewers, and it's basically what's on everybody's mind. A couple minutes ago, we saw your little dog friend in the back, and we're wondering what's the name. Tell us about your dog.
Oh, this is Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder.
Just really happy to be up on here. Yeah.
How is Stevie Wonder handling quarantine?
He's winning. He's totally winning. I think those are most of our dogs. Stevie basically has his two favorite people around 24/7, and he's now convinced that every hour is dinner. So he could not be happier about how this quarantine thing is working out. He's so totally down to perpetuity. I'm
so glad to hear it. Wonderful. There was this amazing, after we get off the call, everybody watching should Google this. The Wall Street Journal ran this incredible, basically an op-ed where it was competing opinions. One opinion was written by a dog, one opinion was written by a cat, and the dog was making the argument, why don't we just work from home forever? And the cat, of course, was making the argument, it's time to get America back to work. I'm glad that Stevie Wonder is having you around. Good. Now, Anna, I want to kind of bring it back to something you had said earlier. And you talked kind of about therapy, and this is something that we've talked a lot about in some of the other Smarter Living chats, but maybe just a super quick minute on this. We had a viewer ask, how can I deal with the anxiety of reintegrating into the real world when this is over? I'm doing so much fruitful work on myself and my mental space, and I'm worried that facing real life stressors will make it really hard to maintain that after. Yeah, this is like super important, and I feel like something everybody's dealing with. And I just have one quick thing, and then I'll kind of open it up. That I'll say that another Smarter Living writer, her name is Jenny Tate. She's a psychologist. She said this on a previous happy hour that you had. But one thing that she recommended in just kind of dealing with all this was to literally on your calendar, the way she put it was, make an appointment with your grief. So block out 20 minutes of your day where literally you're just gonna kind of sit there with all these like kind of, maybe they're bad, awful emotions, but just kind of process them, deal with them, think them through, and hopefully dedicating specific time in your day will, to the extent that it can, prevent you from kind of ruminating about it for the rest of the day. And that's something that I've tried to integrate as such that I can. But when she said that, I thought that was just such a smart way to kind of deal with this. But I don't know, Anna, Micaela, or Joaquin, is that something you guys have tried to deal with? Is teletherapy anything that you guys have looked into, anything like that?
Well, my mother is a teletherapist, therapist too. So now you know where the inspiration for a lot of my stories comes from. I was raised in that environment thinking about it. But I mean, I think a lot of it is reintegration is going to be hard. It's going to be tricky. And I don't think it's fair to expect otherwise from yourself or from other people. So I think a lot of it is, going to be scheduling time for grief, scheduling time to adjust, kind of having adjusted expectations as well. Like what I do, how I behave in public 6 months from now is not going to be what I did 2 years ago. It's just impossible.
That's great.
Kind of trying to be okay with that.
Good, good, good.
Micaela,
Now, Micaela, I want to stick with you real quick.
I think most mothers would say they qualify as teletherapists.
Yeah, but mine is state certified. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, Micaela, I do want to stick with you. So let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Now,
Okay.
you wrote a story for the Times for Smarter Living just this week, and it was 5 games that people can play on video chat. It's amazing. Everybody should go read it after this. But I'm wondering if you could maybe talk through one of the games and kind of give us kind of the overall instructions on how to play it.
Yeah, so one of the first games that I wrote up in the piece is called Drink, Talk, Learn. And it kind of went viral a few years ago online. And it's a perfect game for me because when I love something, I just want to talk about it to everyone all the time. My friends know all of my obsessions. And this is a great way of doing that in a party format because everybody gets 3 minutes and you put together a presentation and it can be about anything you're passionate about. The weirder, the better. Ringo is the dreamiest Beatle. There is a correct way to hang the toilet paper roll and everyone else is wrong. The world is flat. Whatever that comes to mind. And basically the floor is yours for 3 minutes. So you put together a slideshow, you screen share, and you try and convince your friends why you have this perfect singular vision. And then at the end, you can vote on a winner. You can vote on who had the funniest presentation, who had the weirdest presentation. It's basically just an excuse to geek out, make a presentation as you geek out, and then share that kind of passion and joy with your friends.
Can you tell us something you have given a Drink, Talk, Learn about?
Yeah, I am pretty obsessed with the topics that I wrote my college theses on. So I'm like, want to talk about William Hogarth's etchings? I'm here. Want to talk about
popular topics everyone can relate to.
Oh yeah, you know, like the casual stuff. I'm like, yeah, food culture, mid-century America. I mean, I have a 30-page paper if you want to read it after. But
oh, I have my own fun.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I've done things about like why gelatin became such like an obsession in the 50s. Yeah.
What would you say is the weirdest thing you've learned in your Drink, Talk, Learn experiences?
I don't know.
Did someone make the case about Ringo Starr being the dreamiest Beatle?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was like one of the first ones that I ever did. So it was a few years ago. So I don't really remember the main bullet points. I just know that there was a lot of sexual passion for Ringo.
Look, I get it. I don't want to judge anybody. That's great.
Well, maybe that's your topic at your next one.
I'm going to steal that one. That's excellent. So in the story, there were 5 games. Can you maybe tell us about one more?
Yeah, so another game is I was actually looking for suggestions from people from games that they'd played. And someone had commented that their son had been learning a lot of magic like on YouTube. And like, it was like such a fun activity for him to spend time learning it because it's kind of something for kids to do at home and then showing it off to the family and then everyone getting involved. And so that kind of helped me come up with this idea for talent shows, which I've been trying to do with friends. And the fun thing about talent shows is I like the rule where if you had a talent before quarantine, you can't use it. So like, if you have a beautiful singing voice, forget about it. That's not your talent. You have to join us regular people who are tone deaf. And so like, it can be like doing winged eyeliner. It's super quickly, speed icing a cake, like decorating something, attempting to tap dance, a magic show, whatever. The weirder it is, the more fun it is because everyone's just kind of being silly.
Now, I'm not going to make you, but if you had to perform a talent for us, what would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm trying to think because like the eyeliner one stumped me. I was like, oh, I don't even remember how to put this on. A new talent that I could do. Yeah, that's the issue. I love the rule if it has to be something new, but I don't have any new talents. I
feel like I've picked up 0 skills since quarantine started.
Yeah. I'm like, I think I did like a magic trick. I did a card trick.
Oh, good. That's great.
Yeah. So actually, there's a link in the article to another New York Times article where a magician shows you how to do 2 card tricks. So.
I believe that was in Smarter Living, if I recall correctly.
Yes, it might be. Yeah. So I think I did one of those. I was like, is this your card? Yeah.
You know, while we're on the topic, one thing that I will just throw out there is I fell into a magician TikTok hole like a week or two ago, for literally like 90 minutes, I was just like lying in bed looking at magicians on TikTok, and there are some insanely talented people on there.
Yeah.
It was bonkers. I didn't know it was such a deep well of magician talent. It was incredible. So I would highly recommend that if anybody has 90 minutes to spare this weekend. That's a good way to spend it.
We all do.
Listen, I want to throw another question to everyone. We have a question from Caroline. Caroline asks, for us, first of all, what is the happiest time of the day in quarantine, and what is the most difficult time? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I can start. I have a thought. I would say the happiest time for me, like I feel like it's gotten really difficult for all of us to kind of differentiate between like when work time ends and when like real life time begins. And like, I feel like the deeper we get into quarantine, the more important that's becoming. And I like, when we first kind of started with this, I tried to make a really hard rule where 6:30 p.m. was like the last minute I was going to work of the day. And like, I was like very aggressive about like, you know, not responding to Slacks, like turning off email, just like not engaging with work. And, you know, like with everything that's happened here, that of course got messed up. But I feel like that, like, since then, like I've really savored that like little period, like after work, while you're just kind of like figuring out like what you want to do for the rest of the night. And like, you know, honestly, like most nights, like me and my roommate just kind of like eat dinner, like watch The Office and drink wine. But like, there's this little like period of glee after like shutting down the work laptop that I feel like has just really given me like a lot of joy. And I've really like learned to savor that like difference between like work time and life time. That's been really great. But I would say the most difficult time, I've been having a lot of trouble sleeping, man. Like, I don't know what it is. We have a story in the works about melatonin by someone who might be present. But yeah, I don't know. I'm having trouble sleeping. I don't have an answer to that. I don't know the fix. But yeah. What about you guys? What are some of your pleasurable times throughout the day?
Oh, I'll go. Every time we end the day, my husband lights a candle, and it's like so zen. It's like the silliest little thing, but it's like, oh, the candle's lit. It's happy hour. It's done. So normally he never works from home. So to get to have him home, and he does this little candle lighting. It's like, oh, it's on. Wine and cheese. Who's in? And it's just the whole mood of the house changes.
That's great. I mean, it's like a little ritual almost. Like you kind of like latch onto the rituals that we have.
I'm like, oh, the candle's lit. I'm like, what are we doing?
It's party time.
Let's have some fun.
Micaela, Joaquin, what do you got for us?
I'm kind of similar. Like it's like when work ends, though sometimes I do kind of let it keep bleeding into my
I'm
evening.
sensing a theme here from everything we've heard.
Yeah. But
our days are good when work ends.
to not be totally repetitive, I am actually quite enjoying my mornings because like I've kind of fallen into more of a morning routine, which I've never really had. But it's kind of like wake up, have coffee together, like zero commute, zero planning of how I'll get somewhere or how long it'll take me to get somewhere. So kind of enjoying that, like sleeping into the last minute, having a nice relaxing coffee, not having to worry about going anywhere, just kind of like, all right, starting now. Yeah.
Joaquin, what's the best part of your day?
Probably the fact that nearly every day now I can do what used to qualify as weekend cooking. And I think for me, like cooking is like oddly one of those great stress relievers. I mean, I will sit there and mince and brunoise and chiffonade and like all this, and I'm so happy, you know, just sitting there for 2 hours working on a meal, and now I get to do that every day.
That's great.
So that's actually like weirdly therapeutic.
I love it. I love it. Now, Joaquin, while we have you, super quick question from Donna. How can I use a bottle of weird cranberry liqueur in the back of my cupboard? Also, blackstrap rum?
Okay, two very different ingredients, but the cranberry liqueur is actually going to be really good as your, as like a base for a highball. So if you take a little bit, like an ounce of the cranberry liqueur and the rest with something like slightly bitter, like a bitter lemon soda or a tonic or a ginger beer or something like that, you're going to get a little fruitiness, a little tartness, and then you're going to get all that extra length. And because it's a liqueur, you don't want to have too much because there's a decent amount of sugar in there. So you're just doing it in a nice light highball. So that's like a really nice, refreshing drink that you could make for yourself at like 4 or 5, and you're not like, I'm gonna get wasted before the sun goes down. So that's a really good one. And then for the
quarantine, there are no rules in quarantine.
For the blackstrap, I love floating that atop of dark and stormy, because then it actually looks like dark storm clouds on top of the drink. So if you just have, you know, a random bottle of rum and some ginger beer and you're doing dark and stormy, I like floating a little bit of blackstrap over the top. There's also a tiki drink called the Jungle Bird, which if you have like pineapple juice and Campari at the house, you could also do that. And that was originally with Barbados rum, I think, but about 10 years ago, Giuseppe Gonzalez started doing it at Painkiller with blackstrap, and that's kind of how it took off. So now everyone has kind of just decided it's a blackstrap drink. So, you know, go for it.
Perfect. Love it. Love it. All right. Now I want you to throw another question to the group. Now, you know, maybe I should have said this. This is something that does bring me extreme joy throughout the day. This is not limited to any amount of time. Question is everyone wearing leisure wear? I can't imagine putting work clothes back on or even shoes. And listen, Maureen, I am here with you. Look, full disclosure, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm wearing gym shorts right now, this second, as I speak to you, okay? I haven't put on real pants in months at this point. You kidding me? I am not going back to work clothes. I am fully, you know, you're lucky that I wore a t-shirt with sleeves today, let's be honest. I've just leaned into the leisure wear, full stop. That is my new life, and I am not going back.
Yeah, the pajama pant legging collection that I have really has come into use these past few weeks. Yeah, that's all I wear.
And why would you wear anything else, really?
Truly.
Anna, tell us have you gone full leisure wear as well?
I have, but I miss dresses. Like, I'm such a dress lady, like a dress barn lady. Not the actual dress barn. I just have a barn-like dress, collection. But I really miss dresses. Dresses can stay. Jeans, they can go back to their planet.
Oh, jeans, give me a
from whence
break.
they came. Get out of your jeans. But dresses
I feel like
can
jeans
stay.
as a concept is just over. Like, we're just not going to go back to that.
Jeans are done.
Yeah.
Done.
They're out.
They're out. So, like, you know, as we're all trying to maintain something of a social life, I feel like so much of it has been really based around, like, as we're doing right now, like around Zoom and like FaceTime and Google Chat. And so I got a question. You know, do any of you have any suggestions for staying in touch with friends and family who maybe don't super love using apps or aren't glued to their smartphone all day or just want to get away from screens? Like, have you guys been able to figure out how to kind of stay social without Zoom or without Google Hangouts or without FaceTime? I have not. The closest I've come is like a phone call. But a friend of mine actually, this is a pretty good idea. A friend of mine, for this reason, because he was kind of, you know, just getting Zoom fatigue like all of us have, he started collecting physical addresses of people as if he were going to send like a holiday card, but he's just like sending little like hello notes, just like, hey, how's it going? Like, how's your quad? What have you been up to? And I think that's a very lovely idea because, like, how often do you get like a physical letter in the mail, and how often do you write a letter to someone? So that just felt like a very sweet gesture to me. But beyond that, I have sadly no advice to offer on this front. Does anybody else?
I'll raise my hand.
Please.
I love sending care packages. Like, I've been sending packages to my friends, some family. Just it's so easy to order from the manufacturer or the store and just send it to someone. And just like a little package, you get to watch it on your app of like, it's just been delivered. It's on its way. It's like sent. So it's like sort of a garden. Like, you're watching it grow over a few days of the package getting to its destination. I'm like a camp mom. Like, I just been sending care packages to everyone.
You're just sending care package to people. I love it. That's great. Joaquin, do you have anything here? I have nothing here. You got to help us out. Do you have any ideas?
Well, we've been doing a decent amount of like little happy hours and stuff like that, but that's all been over Zoom. But I do think the return of the phone call is a real thing where I think there was a period where no one ever used the phone. No one understood what voicemail was. I don't know if it was a generational thing, but it was text or nothing.
right.
or Slack or nothing. And now I feel like people now have the time. They're like, oh, you know, instead of spending this time texting, why don't we just pick up the phone and hear each other? So I think that's a pretty low-tech way to connect that I think a lot of people have moved away from.
Yeah.
Developing a pen pal. I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, honestly, I love that idea.
Yeah.
My wife has a pen pal, Dodo, who's 105. As she puts it, I'm like a fever. And it's amazing. I mean, it is just wonderful. She sounds like Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's really fun. I think those are things that we can go back to now. The only thing I wonder is like how unbelievably illegible everyone's handwriting is at this point.
Right, like, do we think people are going to get better at handwriting because of this? Right. But Joaquin, something that you had mentioned when we were talking before, you have done kind of Zoom happy hours like this before, where you have kind of acted as bartender. So, you know, for people who might be interested in that, like, you know, how have those gone? Like, how do you kind of set those up? Like, what's that? How do you do that? What's that like?
We've got a standing Friday 6:30 happy hour with a lot of my wife's family and friends. Mm-hmm. And usually by Wednesday or so, preferably earlier, we'll have sent out the recipe we're going to work on along with a short shopping list. And that usually includes a couple of like alternatives. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the drinks are pretty simple. It's a Negroni and the family of Negronis. It's the South Side. It's the Bee's Knees, stuff like that. And so we just go through those and, you know, we set it up and we talk about it. And usually because, you know, my wife will film it, so she's got the phone, so it's a much more dynamic camera than what we had here, so they can zoom in. It's like, this is how we do the garnish, this is how we do this, and then people chime in with questions, and then it's really nice. So at the end of that, once everyone's made their drink or has poured themselves something, we kind of go around the Zoom chat, and everyone has to say something that brought them joy over the last. So we try to keep it as positive as possible, right? You want it should be relatively short and sweet. It usually doesn't last much more than a half an hour or 40 minutes, but that way we can usually kind of hear from everyone and hear something positive from everyone.
That's great. That's great. That is a lovely note to maybe wrap things up on. I would love to ask each of you, what's something that's brought you joy during your core time, whether it's like a TV show or a movie or a video game or a book? Like, what's something that you've just love that you've consumed that you would recommend people experience? Joaquin, do you want to start us off while we have you? Joaquin, you there?
Yeah, sorry. I think Saman Nosrat, the author of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, has a beautiful new podcast called Home Cooking. And Wesley Morris from the Times, who's actually my neighbor, he lives a block away from me, is on the current episode of it, and I love it. I mean, they're obviously talking a lot about cooking, which I adore, but more than anything else, it's getting to hear Saman's laugh, which is just one of the most pure joy sounds in the entire world. It never fails to bring me joy when I'm in the kitchen and I hear that laugh fill it. So
that's great. That's great. Micaela, what do you got?
I'm really enjoying working through the archives of podcasts that I like. So You're Dead to Me and Reply All are ones that I just finished. And I really like doing that because I can craft or make art, or right now I'm embroidering a bunch of vintage photographs. And so it's just a great way of kind of zoning out into an activity that's just kind of like filling, and then listening to something interesting that's not news related. And so it's just like
embroidering photographs.
Yeah. So if you just take needle and thread in an old picture, you can punch holes and embellish them and make little pieces of art. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I hope to see one of those next time.
Yeah, I'll send you photos.
Annie, what do you got for us? Bring us home.
I'm gonna sound like a dirtbag here, but I've been listening to the hair metal station on Amazon, and Guns N' Roses has been so cathartic. Like, I just want to listen to Warrant, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses. It's like bringing me back in a way that I needed.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I will say the one thing I would say is literally just walks around the neighborhood. Like, I feel like you've never experienced your neighborhood the way that it is right now, like desolate, empty, everything's closed. It's just such a weird and like in a very bizarre way, very satisfying just to kind of like embrace all of this for what it is. And, you know, when I had COVID-19, I was like extreme quarantine and literally couldn't even leave the house, like not even for a walk around the block. And so that really, I feel, has made me really appreciate just like getting outside and like breathing fresh air, which is a very weird thing to like learn to appreciate, but I feel like I really have. But that's the one thing that I would say. But listen, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to our panelists for joining us tonight. So appreciate you, all of you, spending your Friday evenings with us. If you're interested in more Smarter Living, you can visit us at nytimes.com/smarterliving. The Smarter Living book makes for excellent reading. You can actually buy the ebook version right now in the US for just $4 on Amazon. And if you want the physical copy, you can buy that anywhere books are sold. And this event, like I said at the beginning, is part of an ongoing conversations, a series of conversations with New York Times journalists that take place daily, actually. And this Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, you can hear from our forum of, listen to this, Times philosophers, if you can believe that, and the comedian Stuart Lee on the role of comedy in the crisis. To find more about our full slate of digital events, please visit timesevents.nytimes.com. And finally, just a special thank you to all of our subscribers. We literally could not do any of this without you. You are why we're able to just maintain and do everything that we're doing right now. You really do make our work possible. Again, thank you all so much for joining us, and we can't wait to speak with you again. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.